Good evening. Welcome to the Marion City Schools Special Board Meeting of June 28th, 2022. I'm calling the meeting to order at this time. Veronica, please call the roll.
Mr. McGinnis?
Here.
Mr. Ratliff? Mr. Weibling? Mrs. Dyer?
Here.
Mrs. McKay?
Here. All right. Well, tonight we're going to have a presentation from the K-12 search firm to help us get information as we decide our next steps in finding a superintendent. So I would like to welcome you, Deb, and if you could just introduce yourself. And
Sure.
Thanks.
I will do a little further in the presentation, but my name's Deb Campbell. I was a school superintendent for 8 years at Clark Shawnee Local in the Springfield City area. I was a teacher for 17 years, and I was an elementary teacher, so a lot of people say, how'd you ever get to be a school superintendent? They usually choose high school principals to move up, but I was really fortunate to work in a great district. I worked out of an educational service center as a curriculum consultant, and I also worked as an assistant superintendent in a local district in Clark County. So that's a little bit about me. I'll tell you a little bit more during the presentation if that's okay. But I want to thank you for allowing K-12 to present. We know it's critically important to get the right leader for your district, to get someone who will lead you through the next few years, hopefully 5 to 8 years. I was at Clark Shawnee Local for 8 years. Was very fortunate that I was there that long. But we have a 6-step process. And if you look in your folder, the K-12 services, I believe it will show you the 6-step process that I have up on the screen. We've been using this process since 2001 when Chris Moore, who's the CEO of our company, started doing superintendent and treasurer searches. Chris was the former treasurer at Dublin City Schools. So everybody affiliated with our firm has been leaders in school districts. So we have kind of a special network that we can pull on when we're trying to vet candidates, which is really important. So the most important thing about a search is finding the right person for you. It's important that we make a match for you and bring the right candidates to the table. So we do that by producing a superintendent search profile. And that superintendent search profile is a document that you will see under tab 2 in the notebook. And it's specifically designed for your school district. We gather the information for that superintendent search profile in 2 ways. First, we hold focus groups. And those focus groups consist of, maybe it's under tab 1. Try that. Sorry. Try tab 1.
Yep.
Yes, the profile is there. There should be a brochure first, and then maybe the profile. Okay, so we gather information for that profile by holding focus groups within your school district. We talk to teachers, we talk to students, we talk to administrators, we talk to support staff, and we also talk to your community. And we find out what kind of a leader are they looking for, and then we write this search profile for you. So that search profile works for us in several ways. It lets us know what this community, the board, and the school district are looking for in their next leader. So we know who we can go and recruit. And at step 3, you'll see that we do actively recruit. We recruit because we have seen over the past few years that we have serial appliers. So we see them in every search that is posted on the BASA website. We also see people that might be in trouble in the school district that they're in, and so they're searching for somewhere new to go. And we also want to make sure that the people we're recruiting are a really good fit for you. So we do try to make that match, and we recruit people who are good at their job and who are comfortable in their job. They want to stay there because they're making progress, they're moving the district in a forward motion, and so we need the time to convince them that Marion is the best place for them. And as recruiters, that's what we do, okay? Then what we do is we assist you with the interviews. And you'll see under tabs 3, 4, 5, all the way through the rest of the notebook, you'll see interview questions. Now, we have a bank of interview questions that the board can select from, but we also look at that search profile and design questions specifically that people in your district or the Board of Education said are issues that they would like people to address, okay? So we are very thoughtful about the interview process, and we manage that whole process from the beginning to the end, so that you don't have any worries. We'll do all of that work ahead of time so that it's easy for you to go through that interview process. Step 5 is something that, because we have a treasurer, that's our CEO, we help negotiate the contract with your final candidate. And that's really important because many times a candidate will ask for something that the board is not willing to give. The board will give us clear direction on what they want to offer the candidate for salary, for benefits, and then we can be the go-between. And we can say that's an unrealistic ask. We're not going to go back to the board and ask for that. But sometimes there's a little thing like a cell phone or something like that that they ask for. And we sometimes say, we'll go back and ask the board for that. Frequently, a new superintendent to a district will ask for some consulting days. They want some transition days. So we would want that to happen because once they hit August 1, they're going to hit the ground running. So it'd be good if they can make some transitions with the the current superintendent. Then the last step that we talk about, step 6, is actually not part of the process, but we do assist the board if asked to set goals for your new superintendent. Now, I know you have an interim superintendent right now, and if our search firm is selected to help you with the superintendent search, we would very gladly help you write and craft some goals for your interim superintendent, because you want your district to continue to move forward. And there are things that you as a board want that interim superintendent to address, even though they're only going to be there for a short time. Okay? Next, oh gosh, that doesn't show up.
There you go.
Oh, there it is. One of the things is that our firm makes, the people that work here make the difference in our firm. And that is because we always assign 2 consultants to every search. We don't want to miss one part or one piece of the search, or we don't want one board member to have a question about something and not get that answered right away. So our search firm does assign 2 people to every search. The 2 people you would have assigned to your search is myself. I have over 40 years of experience. I don't want to tell you how many, over 40, but over 40 years of experience. I've been assistant superintendent, a superintendent. I was a past president of the Buckeye Association of School Administrators. That organization is the professional organization for all the superintendents in the state of Ohio. I'm very humble that my colleagues elected me to be the past president, but it does give me a very broad network of people that I met throughout the state. And when I call them, they will take my call, which is nice. Mm-hmm. I was also worked at BASA for 5 years, and I did all the professional development for the superintendents in the state of Ohio. So like I said, our network is good. We can get people to talk to when we want to recruit them. They'll at least listen. And so that's a strength of our company. Dusty Miller is just new to our company. He's the director of the Educational Doctorate Program at the Ohio State University. He teaches courses in K-12 leadership, school management, and human resources. And before OSU, Dusty spent 20 years in Dublin City Schools as a high school principal, a middle school principal, a director of secondary education, an English teacher, and he's past president of the board of directors of the Ohio Association of Secondary School Administrators. So we also have a very good relationship with the principal organizations. And when you're trying to vet people, it's good to be able to talk to people you can trust to find out what those people are really like. So that's a little bit about the search consultants that would be assigned to your search. Are there any questions so far? You can just stop me at any time. Well, our goal is to make your job easy. We like to use the easy button. So we are going to customize the search to meet your district's needs, because every district has specific needs, such as timelines that they are trying to meet, the type of candidate they want, how much community and staff involvement they want in the search. So we do have different levels of searches, but within those searches, we can customize them to meet your needs, okay? So why should you choose us over other firms? Well, we're going to be very detailed in our coordination of your search from the very first meeting. So what we will do is we will meet with you and we will organize the search. We will make sure that all the dates are secured so that we have everybody aware of when things happen throughout the search. And we will give you weekly updates where we are in the search via email. And of course, you might have questions about those weekly updates, but you can call or email us and we'll be glad to answer them. We also have a very proven staff and community engagement search process when we develop this profile. It helps the community realize what they're looking for as far as characteristics in the next superintendent. And we facilitate those meetings and listen to their input so that staff and community have a voice. And they are then appreciative of the fact that the board wants them to have a voice in this process. We make it very clear to staff and community that there's only one group that makes the final decision on who the school superintendent is, and that's the 5 people on the Board of Education. But it's always refreshing when a board chooses a search firm that will listen to their voices, and you can see through that search profile that we are listening to the voices. We ask them 3 questions in those focus groups and in the search profile, and there you can see them under that tab 1. We ask them what is great about your school district, because remember, we're also using this as a recruiting document. So we want people to know the things that you're doing. I know you have the 4 pillars and all that, so we want people to know about that. I think you still have Leader in Me program. All those kinds of things are very attractive to a candidate who wants to come to a school district. The second question we ask is, what are the issues facing the school district? So we know ahead of time what strengths a person that we're recruiting will need to be able to face those issues. So we want to make sure that we know what those are. And then the last question we ask in those focus groups or those online surveys that we're asking is, what do you want your next superintendent to look like? What characteristics are important for you? Okay? Now, I told you we have 3 different levels of searches, and we want to make sure that the silver level is actually our most popular level, and that's because it has community and staff participation at the beginning of the process when we write the search profile, and then again at the end of the process when the board chooses a group of 30 to 40 staff and community members to meet their finalist and give input to the board as to who they think might be a good fit. So we will actively recruit the prospects that meet the profile. And the nice thing is we just don't rely on those postings. We really go after people who we feel like are the right fit for you. And sometimes you know people you would like for us to reach out to, so we would do that. We just make, it's kind of a strange time after COVID. We're getting less candidates applying for a position than we used to in the past. Kettering City Schools, I brought their notebook. They only had 13 applicants. Huber Heights had 12 applicants. Both are really well-respected school districts. Now, Van Buren was willing to look at a school leader that did not have superintendent experience, and they had 20 applicants. But it just depends on what criteria everyone's looking for, but we will actively recruit. We want to make sure that you don't have any surprises with the candidates. So we look into their background and we really ask the hard questions. Because of our relationship with the professional organizations, we can pick up the phone and confidentially talk to the executive directors. You know, if somebody's in trouble, they're calling their association and asking for advice. And because of the confidentiality and the relationship we have, they're willing to talk to us about maybe what some of those issues are, and then we can decide what to tell you because we don't want you to have surprises. Sometimes it's not a big issue and you may want to talk to that person for an interview, but that's one of the strengths we bring. We're able to do that.
Are they telling you why they're not applying? Are superintendents just leaving education, or they're happy where they are?
Yes.
Or there's not enough superintendents?
Yes.
Ohio has a lot of school districts.
They do. And I'm going to show you a tool that we use with the board in just a minute, and you would know who we've recruited and why they chose not to apply. So you would see all those names. And some firms do not allow you to see all the names of the applicants. They bring you 8 names or 10 names that they think fit you. K-12 feels like, yes, we are professionals, but you know your district, your staff, and your community better than anyone. And you need to be able to look at every applicant who applies and make a decision as to whether or not you want to interview them. Okay? Once again, I said we do advise the board on competitive wages and benefits. I remember a superintendent once we were working on the competitive wages, and this person said, well, I want $150,000. I went, you are a new superintendent with no experience. You are not getting $150,000. You are not getting the top of the salary range. So let's talk about what is realistic. And then the board didn't have to say to that candidate, we're not giving you the top of the salary range, so we can work as a buffer for you in those contract negotiations. Then we will help with the press release. I know you have a media person, but we will do a draft press release. We'll get a picture of your successful candidate. We'll get a quote from the board president. We'll get a quote from your new superintendent, and we will put that all together for you. And then your communications person can, I always say, pretty it up, make it look good, So let's talk about the 3 kinds of searches that we have. We know that one size does not fit everybody. So we offer 3 levels of searches. As I said earlier, the silver level is our most popular search. And that is because we have community and staff input at the profile when we're writing that search profile, and we have community and staff input with meeting your finalists, okay? The gold level, the candidate spends a day in the district. A lot of school districts don't feel like they need that. So the silver is our most popular search. The pricing for those searches are on page 6. And what in the search services document, yes. And it also shows you the different levels of community input. The last page of that document gives you a visual of the community participation. So you can see that by far the gold level has more community participation, but I will just say K-12 feels like the silver level gives your staff and community really good participation. The bronze level, you would still have staff and community participation in the beginning of the program when we're doing the search profile, but then you would not have a focus group that would meet your finalists. Okay? Any questions about those? Okay, so what I tried to do is put together for you what a calendar might look like, because that, and I did it for a silver level search because that's our most popular search. We would organize, since you're so fortunate that you have an interim. I just worked with a district this last week that only had 2 candidates that they could interview for an interim. Wow. And so it was really going to be down to the wire as to whether or not we could get them an interim. But you have an interim, so that's very helpful to your search process. We would probably ask that you meet with us in September to set up the search. At that organizational meeting, we would do all of the dates necessary for focus groups, for interviews. Everything would be done at that initial meeting in September. Then in late September, we would hold those focus groups. And if you could turn to tab 1 in your notebook and look at that search profile, you'll see how we categorize what we learned from each group. So we hold focus groups and everyone is invited. And I believe, I'm gonna grab this notebook just so I'm looking at the same thing you are. So right after the search brochure, you'll see this superintendent search profile. I told you there are 3 questions that we will ask. So if you turn past that initial page, it will talk about how many people came to the focus groups, how many online surveys we collected, and a little bit about who helped us with the search. To do focus groups, it's a lot of work, setting time schedules and locations. And Veronica will probably be the one we'll be working with. But it's a lot of work to set all that up. But after that introductory page, you will see the strengths of the district. And you will see that that's divided into consistent themes. So those were themes we heard throughout every focus group and on all of the questionnaires that were returned. It's always funny, the students, we always meet with students, and they say there's not enough snow days, or, we try to steer them away from those kind of comments, but you'll see then we break it down by each group. The board members, what was important to them, as saying what was good about their school district, the administrators, the teachers, the support staff, the parents and community, and then the high school students. Now we do that again for the issues. We look for those consistent themes. And then after we found the consistent themes, and you'll probably see in some of those there's a lot about COVID, because that was a consistent theme in almost every district we worked with last year. Parents especially, are worried about the learning loss of their students and those kinds of things. So you'll see that as an issue many times under parents and community. But then the last category is, what are they looking for in the new superintendent? What characteristics? Somebody who's effective, well-rounded, a communicator. So you'll find all of those attributes that they're looking for. And again, it's broken down by each focus group that we talk to. The next chart is usually interesting because it's sometimes contradictory. So we'll have a theme be that they want somebody with superintendent experience. And then when we force them to rank order the 10 criteria that you see, maybe it's not as important that they have successful experience as a superintendent. So when forced to rank order, sometimes their priorities change. But at least you see all of that in this report. And then we write a summary for you that talks about what we see as the strengths, what we see as the challenges, and what we see as the characteristics, and gives some final thoughts about the kind of person you might be looking for. Okay? Any questions about that profile? It's pretty comprehensive.
So when I'm looking at Kettering, this was their gold program, right?
They actually did a silver
Silver,
search.
okay.
Yes, Kettering did every notebook you're looking at did a silver search. So community input at the beginning, community and staff input at the end. Okay? And I see that you're looking at the brochure. We do that and put that on our K-12 website. We also put the posting on the BASA website. The school board can choose to put it on the School Board Association website, but even though you're a member, they will charge you $200 to $250 to post your job. I'm just going to say that most people looking for a job look on the BASA website, even out of state. So, I don't know, that's a decision you guys make about whether or not you want to spend that money. So once we have that profile developed, we email it to the board in October. And the board looks at it. You don't have to approve it, but you'll probably have questions about it. So in October, when we send it to you, you will individually ask Dusty and I questions. You'll ask us to clarify things. And then once it is looked at by the board, it'll be placed on your website, and it will be placed on the K-12 website, along with your job opening and your deadline for the job and your brochure. Now, BASA does not post your brochure, but they just post components of it, okay?
So it'll be on our website?
And your website, yes.
Okay.
When we do the organizational meeting, I'll ask you who your technology person is. Usually the treasurer we work through the treasurer, and then they give direction to the technology person. Like I said, we customize this. If you tell me I'm to work with the technology person, that's who I work with. Okay? But you'll have a button on your website that talks about the superintendent search. It'll have when the focus groups are being held. It'll be an invitation to those. We do send out personal invitations to the focus groups, to the staff, and if you have a list of community members, if you have a media person, usually they have a list of community members, and we do key stakeholders like your mayor, your commissioners, those kind of folks get a personal invitation, but then there's also a one call, I don't know if you use one call or something like that for your parents, inviting them to come. So we do a special session for community key stakeholders, and then for parents and community. Okay? Then we post your...
How does that work when you have, say you have parent stakeholders and they have very different views of what they need? So you listen to both
We
of
listen to
them?
every voice. And then if it is if we hear that consistently, I mean, we've had parents say, well, I don't like the football coach.
Sure.
Okay? That's usually one or two parents. That's not going to appear in the report. But if we have all these questionnaires that says there's a climate and culture problem at this elementary school, and we saw that on 25 or 30 questionnaires, it's going to appear in that report. And if it doesn't do much good for you as a board member or for your stakeholders, because this needs to be a really transparent process. It's trying times for school boards right now, so it needs to be as transparent as you can make it.
Yeah.
Okay? So from September through December, and we recommend September through December because your posting needs to be at least 6 weeks. Sometimes they choose 8 weeks, a board chooses 8 weeks, but we don't recommend anything less than 4 or more than 8. 6 is the sweet spot. So if you can post your job for 6 weeks, and especially during Thanksgiving holiday and Christmas holiday, that's when people are looking for jobs for the following year. So that's really an excellent time to get that job out there and get that posted. Now, like I said before, you're going to see every candidate. So what K-12 does is we hold the application packets. Our application packets have a resume, an application that we provide for them. It has different documents that they're allowed to give us. They must give us their certification documents, and they must give us their college transcripts. That's important to some boards of education. So all that is part of the application packet that you will see. Now, that secure portal comes to you a week before we come into your district, Dusty and I, and say, okay, let's talk about the candidates. We know you have questions, and we have opinions. So what we do at that point is we bring what we call our upside-down stoplight. We have candidates that you will see that are in the green, and those are the candidates that professionally from an outsider's view, we feel like are a really good fit for your school district. Does that mean you have to interview them? Nope. You control the process, okay? Then we have candidates in the yellow. And those candidates in the yellow are perfectly good candidates. It's our professional opinion that they might not check all the boxes that everybody was looking for. But frequently, boards of education will choose someone in this yellow area to interview, and sometimes even choose them as their superintendent. Then we have a red area, and as you can guess, that means stop. Stop and think before you decide to interview this candidate, because this candidate, we will tell you something about them that might be an embarrassment for you, that might be a problem they're running away from. And if you choose to select someone from the red, K-12 does not give you a guarantee. And what I mean by a guarantee is, for the first year, you have a school superintendent. If it doesn't work out, K-12 will come back in and do another search for you at a very minimal cost. So that's our guarantee. But if you choose a red candidate, we don't give you that guarantee, because we know something about them that we think is not best for your school district.
Yeah, why put them on there? Why
Well,
put red
because
on?
we want you to see every applicant.
Oh, so they applied,
Yes,
and the color coding indicates what your assessment is
Correct.
based on what we want in our district.
correct.
Okay.
So you, on this, you will see everyone that has
Oh, got
applied,
it. Okay.
and you will see everyone who's applied on that secure portal.
Okay.
Now, at the bottom, there are some blank spaces here. Those will be the names of all the people we tried to recruit for you,
Mm-hmm.
and then the reason they chose not to apply,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
So there are several retired superintendents that live in our area. How do they, can they apply?
Yes.
And how do they get on your list so that they can be
Well, we
red, yellow,
probably
green?
know them if they're retired superintendents.
Mm-hmm.
But during that process where we're setting up the search,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to tell us, are we willing to look at a retire, rehire? Is our community okay with that? Do we want someone who has superintendent experience? You're going to tell us those things at that organizational meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Are we okay with a high school principal from Dublin City Schools who is ready to be a school superintendent? Those are the kind of questions we're going to ask you during that organizational meeting, and you're going to give us keys as to who you want us to look for, and, you know, whether or not you're willing, you know, do you want the person to live in the school district? It's by law, school boards can still require residency for superintendents. Now, what happens when you do that is you limit your pool. If you have someone who lives 20 minutes from here and has children in school and a wife who works in that community, they might not be willing to apply if you're requiring them residency. So you have to think about all those things, what you're willing as a board to look at and what your community would accept.
In this climate for boards of education, I would imagine you see boards that maybe can't come to consensus about what they want.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do in that instance?
Well, certainly we're going to come to consensus on who you're going to interview in executive session. And so we can have frank and honest conversations about who you want to interview. We recommend 6, but if you can't come to consensus on 6, we're willing to bring 8 people back. And sometimes I've seen boards say, you know, I really don't want to interview X, and I really want to interview Y. I'll give you X if you'll give me Y, and then we interview 8 people. But usually there are 4 to 6 candidates that you all look at their credentials, you hear what our vetting process can tell you about them, that you're really comfortable with. Yes.
Go a step further to Kelly's question. There's 3 of us here tonight, not 5. We've had 3 interviews of search teams. 1 has been to none of them. 1 has been to 1 of them. We have at least 1 board member that doesn't believe we need a search group, and I'm not predicting anything except that it's a very distinct possibility we could have a 3-2 vote on a search team or a 3-4-1 vote. I'm not sure. I think there will not be a 5-0 vote on that. Does that give you cause or pause for concern? Or how do you work through that if you've got 1 or more board members who might not be overtly sabotaging the process, but not going along with it during the interviews?
Might be questioning the process a little bit.
Questioning the process, or candidates might view as being anti-whatever.
Whatever. Well, we have had that. We've done some, Sycamore City Schools was a very strong community that we had down there. And they had a very strong minority community. And they felt like one of the candidates, the board, just the community felt like one of the candidates that the board was going to interview was not appropriate for them, for their section of that community. And we field those questions from those people. And Dusty and I would be available for any board member at any time. That's why we assign 2 people. We're not going to force them into appreciating our process, but we are going to let them know that our process works. We have never had to do a guarantee, and we are, we're the people that are placed some of them have been in their positions 10 years. So.
What if you have a divided board? I'm sure you've seen them. Does that shrink your pool of
No,
candidates?
I don't think it shrinks the pool, but we would be honest with the candidates who are applying that you might have a divided board. Some candidates find that as a challenge, and they want to take on that challenge. Other candidates find that as, well, that's not for me, So it's our job as a search firm and as recruiters to make sure that everyone who applies is comfortable with applying. Everyone who applies understands the strengths of the district and the issues facing the district, because that's the only way you're going to get the right person.
Right.
Thank you.
On average, how long do superintendents stay with the district?
Well, it's a little different in larger districts, but in a district your size, 4 years, 4 years. I was a superintendent 11 years ago. I stayed 8 years, but it was a different climate, a different culture then.
Right.
So now we see people thinking about moving after 4 years. Now, I will tell you that as a company, we guarantee you that we will not recruit your superintendent for 5 years. I keep telling Chris Moore, we need to change that. But he is adamant that we do not reach out to your superintendent for 5 years. They can reach out to us, but we will not reach out to them.
Yeah, so it's like 2 questions. Where do you get your pool of candidates? Like, is it like a membership type thing? And we just hired a phenomenal assistant superintendent who did some research, and we met her yesterday. and she said that she had Googled some things and kind of was aware of some of the challenges coming in, and she came anyways, you know. So what of those people, your candidates, what if they kind of Google Marion City and understand dysfunction like you had talked about or whatever? Do they, and we kind of like them, you know?
Sure.
And we're like, okay, don't Google us now.
No, we
But,
tell, we tell candidates, do your research.
Okay.
Right.
Because it's not going to do you service to hire someone that gets here and says, why did I come here?
Right.
So we want them to do their research, and we want to make sure that we can assure them that they have 3 strong board members that are in their corner. A superintendent only needs to count to 3, and so does a treasurer. If you can count to
She
3.
counts way higher
Yeah.
than that. Millions.
That'd be great if it was 3.
It's true. And I have worked on, well, we just got a 3-2 vote at Forest Hills for their superintendent. We told the superintendent, you're getting a 3-2 vote. He said, that's fine with me. That's a challenge for me. I want to go work with them. I think I can bring strengths to them that will improve them as a board and improve their school district. We got a 4-1 vote up in Westlake, and I worked so hard with that one board member to say, come on, you can see the value in this person, but he wanted to hire a female, and this other candidate was a male. A year later, he voted against the person. A year later, he called me and he said, Debbie, you were so right. This guy is perfect for us, So sometimes you don't get a 5-0 vote, but if you can be honest with the candidate about why they might not get a 5-0 vote, then that's their decision as to whether to move forward. And usually we will get that sense after the first round interviews.
Yeah. And where do you get your pool of candidates?
Well, we have a great pool because only one person gets the job. And we usually have 6 to 8 people who interview. So, like I said, our network is very strong. So once we see your characteristics and your challenges and the things that are great about your school district, we're going to reach out to BASA and say, you have anybody that you work with or that you know that fits these characteristics? They're going to give us some names. We have names within our own. We did probably 10 searches last year. That's, like a lot of people that didn't get the job that were very qualified and very good candidates. One of them might be a fit for you. Does that answer your question? Okay. So we would hold that first round interviews in January. And it doesn't have to be the end of January, but till you get your decision as to who you want to interview, sometimes that takes a little bit of time. But it could be mid-January, okay? This is just a sample. It's not, we're going to set things in stone if you hire us. You will be in control of the dates, the timelines, everything, okay? If you choose the silver search, we will do a meet and greet, and the candidates will come in and they will meet your staff and your community, and then they will give you feedback. We will make sure that you see that feedback before you make your final decision. We have several feedback forms we can use. The board will choose the feedback form that they think gives them the best information from the staff and the community, okay? We facilitate that meet and greet, and we do that. We've always done it, but now it's even more important to have a facilitator. We had a person that was very strong-willed in one of our meet and greets. wanted to dominate all of the questions. So as facilitators, because we're former school administrators, we have the ability to work with them so that other people get their voices heard also and their questions answered.
And the board is not part of that.
No, because you're actually interviewing people while they're meeting a different candidate. And then we flip,
Gotcha.
okay? And you select who's going to meet your finalists. And it should be a mix of staff, certified and classified staff, and community members and community leaders. So we say 30 to 40 people that will meet these 2 finalists or 3 finalists, whichever you bring back. But it's critically important to, I think, have that meet and greet because it builds a cadre of people that already know this candidate and support this candidate when they start in August. Okay? So then we do action to employ in February. And then from February through July, we suggest that you do a consulting contract because you will have a acting superintendent. But your new superintendent's going to want to come in and meet individually with board members. They're going to want to meet the association leadership. They're probably going to want to meet with, their administrative team. So we suggest that you make a contract so that they can have up to a certain number of days to transition. And then your new superintendent starts August 1 of 2023.
What is that action to employ? What does that mean? What type of actions are
Well,
they?
it's just, that will be at the board meeting when you actually hire the superintendent.
Okay.
And normally, we suggest, this is strictly a suggestion, we suggest that you allow that candidate to bring their family, their children, if they have children. Some candidates will be bringing their kids to school here. So we suggest that when you employ them, you invite their family. And then sometimes we even suggest that you might have cookies and punch after your board meeting. So anyone who's attending the board meeting can just informally talk to that new person. It's a nice way in a casual atmosphere for your new superintendent to meet some folks.
I like the thought of focus groups a lot. But have you ever seen it where like the focus groups and when they are doing like the meet and greet of the candidates, they focus on a candidate that the board doesn't necessarily embrace as much?
Mm-hmm.
And
What-
yeah, it's our decision, but then we have to weigh the
The-
pros
the
and cons
fallout.
of that.
You have to
Yes.
weigh the fallout. Well,
Right.
we're very adamant in telling the meet and greet group that the final decision is resting with the Board of Education. We also tell them that the Board of Education has a lot more information about the candidates than they do. These candidates have been through a first round interview process where you have asked important questions to the board and the school district. And then we never ask them to rank order the candidates. We ask 3 questions. This is the form I like. We do have a rank order form, but I don't like that. I like the form that says, tell us why you think this person would be a good superintendent here. Do you have any concerns about this person? And then you can ask a 3rd question that says, do you think they fit our search profile? Some school districts, Kettering chose not to ask that question of their staff and community. They only asked those first 2 questions. What do you like about the candidate? Do you have any issues about the candidate? But we can design that form to look like you want it to look, to give you the input you need. Okay? And I think the next slide just says, thank you. Do you have any questions?
It's been nice to ask the questions as you presented. I appreciate your answers and your candor. Obviously, we have a huge decision to make. When do you need to hear from us about,
Well,
moving
because you
forward?
have an interim in place, and we would suggest that we don't start till September. I will say, we have tried to get more staff members, because last year we had I had 4 searches going on at the same time. That's pretty difficult. So we want to make sure that we get you on the calendar. So I would say if you can, within a month, if you could let us know. And certainly, if you have other questions, we would be glad to email answers that you might have, or, to questions you might have, or just individually give us a call about something, we can do that.
Great.
That helpful?
That's very helpful. Always like to have that calendar in my head.
Well, and that's what that first meeting's about, getting that calendar set, getting those focus groups set. Working with your high school principal to identify the students we're going to talk to. Because we don't want just the student council and the football stars and the girls basketball team. We want a broad representation. So we give them guidelines as to how to select those students. We want diversity on that student group.
Right.
It's critically important to have diversity on that student group.
Any other questions?
No.
All right.
Okay.
I think we're good.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, if I can answer anything else for you, please feel free to call me. I left my card. I will need to take your notebooks back.
These are very good. I really like
It's
going
really
through
easy
this.
to keep organized,
Which one is yours? Mine's Kettering.
I'm Van Buren.
Okay.
Did Van Buren hire a superintendent?
Pardon?
Did Van Buren hire a
wow.
superintendent?
Yes, Van Buren hired Dr. Jason Inkrut. And Dr. Inkrut was the high school principal at Northmont. So his high school had almost as many students as Van Buren School District.
My brother's a guidance counselor there.
Oh, really? Well, they are ecstatic. He's moving his family there. He has like a 4-year-old.
So with Inkra, is he from
Kelly, to
Putnam County? Is he
benefit
from the
Mr.
area?
Mullins,
Yes.
He is-
if you need
his
a motion to
family
adjourn.
I do.
lives
Make that
in,
motion.
Ottawa?
1 minute.
Ottawa.
I'm going to
Yeah,
make a
his-
motion to
Edmonton.
adjourn.
Sorry.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move to adjourn.
And
Yeah, his
do I have a
family
second?
lives in-
Second?
All right. We are adjourned at 6:56. All right.
Thank you, John.